New York Artists Collective. Hi there and welcome to the New York Artists Collective podcast this next one's about. I'm Stephanie Manns. If you haven't joined us before, this is a songwriting podcast where we invite one of our favourite artists to tell us about one of their songs, just how they might do on stage but in a bit more detail. Today I'm so excited to have one of my favourite bands, Striking Matches, on the show. Striking Matches is Sarah Zimmerman and Justin Davis, and they are a Nashville band who met in college at music school and went on to form a band and write songs for the hit TV show Nashville. Stay tuned to the end of the episode where I will let you know how to get hold of an exclusive recording of Trouble Is As Trouble Does. Striking Matches join me to talk about their new song, Monster, ahead of their upcoming Northeast tour and EP release. So Striking Matches, welcome to the podcast. Striking Matches consist of Sarah Zimmerman and Justin Davis. So welcome and thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So how long have you guys been a band?
We've been a band for, what year is it?
Long enough to forget, I guess.
We think it's somewhere around like 7 or 8
years.
And you met in college, is that right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, longer ago than that, but we knew each other for quite a while before we actually called it official that we were.
And you met in music school and you were paired by a teacher?
Yeah, just completely at random. We were at Belmont University here in Nashville. We came to be guitar players, really. Yeah. So we went to guitar school, and on the first day of school, they were randomly pairing up freshmen, which we were on the first day. Just you had to get up and play with somebody you didn't know, just complete stranger in front of the whole class. They picked me and they picked Sarah, and we got up and we just kind of had to wing it, and it went pretty well.
Yeah.
So I was like, we should do that again.
Please tell me it went badly for somebody, because that to me just sounds like a recipe for awkwardness.
I'm pretty sure the idea was completely for people to just totally fail. And so there were definitely some kids that got up there and they just tried to do too much, I think, and tried to impress when they should have just, played it safe, but done something, I think, smarter, not harder, So I think there were definitely some of the kids that maybe it didn't go as well for.
Yeah, I mean, with guitar players, with a lot of things, but I feel like namely guitar players at that stage in life, it's all like the Wild West, where it's just like who's the fastest gun, and everybody's always just trying to outplay, and not even outplay, just like outspeed each other, like who plays the fastest, and so that was just a very kind of a guy guitar player bravado sort of version. Right. It was like everybody would get up there and just try and do that, and it doesn't make for playing well with like somebody else.
Right.
You can kind of do that on your own, but as soon as you just try and have a jam, that's when you need to like reel it all in. Kind of keep it simple.
Right.
So we just played some blues.
Yeah, we did just play some blues, and
and kind of blues like lends itself for that. That's why people would do it on the front porch and stuff, is because you can just kind of jam with people.
Yeah.
You both have quite a blues influence, I guess, going on. Was that from growing up?
Yeah, my first concert ever was actually B.B. King, and so I mean my dad namely, but my mom loved it too. But my dad he listened to blues and just a lot of guitar players and folk music and stuff like that, and rock and roll kind of in the 70s. But that left such an impression on me, him being the very first person I ever saw play live. So I can't help it. It's just kind of ingrained.
That's definitely one for the books. I mean, that's one of the world legends of guitar playing and musicians generally. It's like, that's
absolutely. Yeah, no, I was just completely enamored.
And you thought, I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sarah, what was your first concert? Do you remember?
My first concert was James Taylor.
Oh, wow. Another legend.
Yeah, totally. It doesn't help explain the blues influence, I don't think, at all. But it was, I remember we were sitting, it was in like an outdoor shed venue. We had seats on the lawn, and so I couldn't even see the stage. So I was like 8, I think, and I had to watch the whole show on the screen. But I still remember it. But that, like, in my head, when I think about it, I don't remember seeing the stage. I remember seeing the screen, which was kind of weird.
So in terms of your songwriting, and I guess that, those are some pretty heavy hitters in terms of influences. But let's talk about your latest single, Monster. So that just came out recently. So tell me about how you wrote that. And it's a very different direction for you guys. I think this new EP, it definitely sounds kind of new and different to me. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, like you touched on, you kind of have to talk about the EP as a whole,
Mhm.
because for Noon, which is the name of the CP, we had this series, a 3 EP series called Morning, Noon, and Night. And with Noon, it was really meant to just be kind of just eliminate a lot of the boundaries that we maybe set for ourselves,
Mhm.
or just sort of get artificially set for ourselves, because we sort of play within a sound and paint with certain colors. And with this one, it was just we wanted to have almost a therapeutic chance to kind of paint with different colors, or whatever colors you wanted. And
Mhm.
so it was almost like pulling neon and things
Mhm.
that we don't normally do. And so that was kind of the purpose of Noon, which was just leading to songs that we've always wanted to create but just haven't, and just see if we could go there. It's been a fun thing. So Monster kind of came about because it was almost, we wanted to pull something from very influential of like the 80s, and
Mhm.
you could just hear kind of leap off of one of the 80s movies or
Yeah,
something like
totally.
that, like any 80s movie soundtrack.
That was definitely the inspiration for it. And then, but we ended up having slide guitar in there and just the things that still make
Oh yeah.
us who we are.
Mhm.
So we didn't want to go so far that it didn't even make sense anymore. It was just using some of those influences and sounds and synths and like crazy stuff that we had just never had the chance to use before.
Yeah.
Had an opportunity to do it, so we did.
Yeah, and it was interesting to kind of juxtapose, just kind of breaking down what makes a song,
Hmm.
because we essentially wrote the song lyrically and melodically, as we do a lot with sort of an acoustic guitar, and
Hmm.
writing lyric and form first, but then kind of surrounding it with a certain production. And just depending on what you surround something with, it,
Hmm.
it vastly changes what people perceive it to be.
It's funny you said about the 80s movie, because I think when I watched the video, I was getting a very kind of Teen Wolf kind of vibe.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I am really happy that you said
Yeah.
that, because that was what we wanted to kind of strive for with it, and almost play a role there. I mean, there's definitely something genuine in the lyric and stuff, but we wanted to surround it almost as if we were like acting in a story
Hmm.
or something that we were writing for
Yep.
ourselves,
Hmm.
and making it kind of in bite-sized projects like an EP or
Right.
like a single, rather than doing a full record as
Hmm.
it. It just seemed a lot more interesting to us at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to add in that this song just happened. A big reason why we wanted to release it too was just because it has one of our favorite guitar solos we've ever done on a song.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made it a special thing too that we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, that was another thing that the 80s were kind of known for, is
Right.
that they
Epic
had
guitar
these epic
solos.
guitar solos that you don't necessarily get to hear very much anymore. And so it was like, if we're going to go there, if we're going to tap into this kind of 80s vibe for this as kind of the background of the song,
Hmm.
then we absolutely have to put that's our version of it, is putting the guitar solo in
Yeah.
it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
complete with like a twin part and everything, just kind of the epicness to it.
Hmm.
And but yeah, Sarah kind of played it all on slide, which was really cool. I don't know too many 80s style guitar solos like that were actually played with slide though. So that was
That's a fair point. That's a very good point. And just lyrically, I mean, where did the idea from the song come from?
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong,
mm,
Justin, but I think the idea initially came from our co-writer. His name is Sam Ellis, who produced the track as well. He had been watching, what was the show he was watching the night before? It was like one of those like drama, creepy drama, like really kind of like scary show. And he was just like, I had this idea about just like, what if I created a monster, like going into all these kind of like inspiration from the show. But then I think it was Justin probably that kind of took it to the next level, like lyrically.
I feel like it was more lighthearted. I pulled from my own experience, where it's just, I don't know, you just don't have the discipline or the wherewithal to break something off when you ought to have.
Hmm.
And it's more from just a place of compatibility with a person. And it's like, if you go on another date with them, or if you kiss them or something like that, you're creating a whole lot more difficult situation in the
Hmm.
future to come, because they're just all that much more invested in you, and that kind of thing. And so, but just
Hmm.
playing it off in sort of a just in this scope of a almost like a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing,
Hmm.
where it feels a whole lot more dramatic, because it tends to, when it's your situation from your personal place.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. It really is just that sort of like exciting, like, but also scary when you first kind of start to fall for somebody. You're like, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? And is this bad for me? And I don't know, but I don't care, you know? So I think that was definitely where that was all coming from.
Cool. We'll tell you what, how about we take a listen to the track? This is Striking Matches and Monster.
I created a monster, somebody I can't control. Made a connection, hit my heart with 1,000,000 volts. Summoned a demon. When I said we can't just be friends, but I let you kiss me again. We blow our minds. I'm bad for you, but I'm good at it too. There's nothing I won't do. Every time I'm with you, I'm feeling that, don't you close your eyes. Now you're sleeping in my room, so much for too soon. I'd be lying if I said that I'm not terrified. I created a monster, I created a monster, I created a monster. When I said that I want you, when I said come over, I created a monster. Turn you into a villain, shadow running through my mind. I can't get away from that look I put in your eyes. And I'm bad for you, but I'm good at it too. There's nothing I won't do. Every time I'm with you, I'm feeling that, don't you close your eyes. Now you're sleeping in my room, so much for too soon. I'd be lying if I said that I'm not terrified. I created a monster, I created a monster, I created a monster. When I said that I want you, when I said come over, I created a monster. I'm bad for you, but I'm good at it too. There's nothing I won't do. Every time I'm with you, I'm feeling that, don't you close your eyes. Now you're sleeping in my room, so much for too soon. I'd be lying if I said that I'm not terrified. I created a monster, I created a monster, I created a monster. When I said that I want you, when I said come over, I created a monster. I created a monster, I created a monster, I created a monster.
So guys, that was Monster. I really like it. It's really fun. And I also checked out your new single, Say What You Wanna, that I think came out very recently. And that was really cool. I really like the video for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That was really fun. So the video that you have for Say What You Wanna has features a drag queen.
Mm-hmm.
Super fun. Loved it. What was the idea around that one?
We were kind of pitching ideas with the director of the video because we just needed something to sort of illustrate what that song was hammering home so much, which is it's almost playing on the fact that in today's time you really ought to say what you want to. You ought to be yourself. But also I think just with the amount of noise it creates where it just is sort of playing on both that, saying what you want to and the importance of it, but also showing restraint sometimes. And it's kind of it's a bit of a fight song there. So I think the coolest and most interesting visual representation we could was Vidalia, who is the drag queen in the video. And it was really fun to work with them. And I just thought the experience of it was really cool. They learned the lyric and the song and so well that they just kind of had choreographed a dance to it. And
It was so cool.
it kind of blew us both away. And I just felt like it was a really cool visual manifestation of kind of what we were saying in the song.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. We went downtown on Broadway in Nashville to shoot a couple of shots. And it was amazing how she just sort of like made the street her own and did not care if people were watching, didn't care if it looked like they were saying something under their breath. Like she just didn't care. And she's like, I love making people feel uncomfortable.
Oh.
And I was just like, this is amazing. But it really did, just that attitude that she just exuded just from walking around was just sort of like, that's what this song is exactly about.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to get to experience that.
I mean, I know Nashville's very liberal, but walking around in downtown Nashville is not the same as walking around downtown New York as a drag queen, Yeah,
totally.
no,
not at all.
Totally.
Because I think you're right there. The Broadway part of town in Nashville tends to be primarily tourists, which is kind of anybody's guess,
right?
Which way anybody leans there.
So just sort of leading back to your EP or the 3 EP project that you have, tell me a bit more about the impetus for that and how that's been received. Because I think, typically in the music industry, traditionally in terms of being taken seriously, you release an album and that's how you kind of tour, and that's how, when people will review your work and whatnot. So how has this 3 EP project been received? And again, what was the thought behind it?
It's been really fulfilling from a fan standpoint where people have just been really supportive. And I think even when we got into Noon, we really anticipated that if there was going to be a time when people threw their hands up and just weren't sure anymore, it would be during Noon, because we were going to go places that we hadn't been before. And it was really kind of the opposite. We just felt a lot of the fans and even people who almost seemed like they weren't in super fan territory. So the super fans tend to like what you do no matter what. It's the ones who are kind of in the middle who are supporters, but maybe be where you can gauge how well or not well something is received. It's just kind of been overwhelmingly positive, and just saying that this is so different for you guys, but we're just really into it. And it's a cool thing as artists being able to explore, but it's also the timing of it was, I feel like it's something that a label and a lot of the industry just wouldn't quite get or have the patience to kind of give it a shot. And so it was really important for us right here that if we were going to try it, now was the time to do it.
Because you guys are independent now, right?
Correct.
We are, yeah.
And so that was part of the reason. It was like we can do this now, and it feels like what we want to experiment and try and do, because who knows if we'll do it ever again. Maybe the cool thing is it sets a precedent for us where if we did do it again, it wouldn't be the crazy thing.
Right. Yeah, true.
And you've got the evidence to back it up to somebody else if you join another label.
Exactly.
Right. Yep.
And so if we join another label, it's kind of like we scratch that artistic itch. And so if it's something that we don't want to do, it, I don't know, it's kind of once you've done something like this, maybe you refine it or do it again, but we've also kind of done it. But it's also, we're musicians, and we're songwriters, and I keep coming back to this. We want to paint with different colors, and sometimes that makes sense, or sometimes it should just be something that you just play for friends and don't release. But this felt like something that we could make sense of and make it make sense to fans in kind of this 3 EP concept record or project, where it's not necessarily calling it a record, but it's like a record's worth of songs in EP form.
And by design, each of the EPs is a little bit different. We really found that we were just writing so much in the time that we kind of left the label to when we first got to like put something out. We had just written so many songs, and we were like, well, and they had a little different flavor. And so it was like, well, why don't we just take all of these things, which are things that we do, and just make them into separate EPs. So it's like morning, noon, and night are the 3 EPs. It's 3 parts of a day. Each of these EPs is a part of Striking Matches. And so that's why we really just wanted to be able to do it all. And now, like you were saying, Justin, like we might not do something like that again, but I think doing it made us so, just as artists, it pushed us so far. And it was like, there was a lot of self-discovery that happened, I think, in doing it, that allowed us to, we started to figure out how to sing in different ways that we had never done, how to play different things that we have never played. And now we can go and take all of those new tools that we have in our toolkit and use them on what we do next.
It's really exciting. It's a great idea. And your new EP, or your second EP, is coming out December 6th, which is also the date that you play in New York.
That's
there you
right.
go. That's right. Yeah.
super excited about that show at the Knitting Factory, and we'll talk about that shortly. I do just want to sort of touch back on something that I'm sure you're probably fed up of talking about, but Nashville, as in the TV series Nashville. So that was a big start for you.
Yes, it definitely was. I mean, before that, Justin and I had played, some local shows and things like that, but we had not had a song on television before. We hadn't been out of the country before. Like we really were just kind of starting out, and it was our first break in a sense, really. And our first, the thing that led us to an international fan base and all of that. So it was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a crazy thing. I mean, that was our first real taste of success. I feel like it was so special.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about our career, it's everything kind of branches from there. Really, it's sort of like that happened, and then we got to do the Opry, and we went to England, and we got to go and make a record with T-Bone Burnett. So it definitely, that's sort of where the tree starts.
Yeah, I mean, the album that you made with T-Bone Burnett was brilliant, and he's brilliant anyway, but it must have been.
Yeah.
How did that feel, making a record with someone like that? Were you nervous at all, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, and that was our first record. So
yeah.
it's almost like your trial by fire. I mean, we were nervous, but he's also really good. He's a nurturing producer. So it definitely helped alleviate a lot of that, but just teaches you so much. And then it just helps you never be intimidated.
Yeah, true.
Because it's when you kind of start there, just makes everybody human, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess personally, if that were me, I would sort of feel a bit nervous about deferring to that person, going, oh, you know everything, you must know what to do with this,
For sure. And that was definitely a lesson learned, because I think there was some of that happened, but also we were artists enough to be able to kind of speak up and play what we wanted and do what we wanted. But it was definitely something that at least introduced us to the concept of, for sure. Yeah. And just being like, this is ultimately your record, and you need to step up, and you need to be able to tell a guy like T-Bone Burnett no if you really feel strongly about something. And that's just the important thing when you're working creatively with people. We're still learning that with each other, I feel.
Yeah, I bet. How did you guys kind of do that organically? I mean, in terms of songwriting generally, do you come together with a song that you've been working on separately, or do you kind of come together and say, hey, I want to write a song like this, let's do that?
It's definitely both. I think a lot of times one of us will have, a verse or maybe a chord progression or a chorus, and then the other brings it to them. I think some of my favorite songs that we've written together were written that way, where it was like I got it to a certain point or he got it to a certain point, and we needed the other one to just finish, to really take it home. And that's what I think is my favorite thing about writing together. You have that other person that can just see something a little bit differently and take it to the finish line, which is really cool. But it really is always different. Sometimes we'll do like something strictly based off of a riff and write something around that. And a lot of times we'll bring in a third person or a fourth person sometimes too on co-writes. So it's always different.
Oh, cool. And I just wanted to back to something we talked about just before we hit the record button. But I was saying the first time I'd seen you guys perform was at the O2 in London, at Country to Country. And you guys, it was like the after party, and you guys, I think, were performing Trouble Is As Trouble Does. And I remember something happened with your guitar, Sarah, and you had to switch during the song. And it was during that solo. Yeah. And someone, the guitar tech took the guitar effectively off your head and swapped it so fast. You were playing it above your head as he plugged it back in. And I just saw jaws hit the floor. It was something else. And I was just like, wow, that is something special. It was really, really cool.
I feel like out of the two of us, for some reason, I'm the one more susceptible to things going wrong. I'm always the one to break the strings or the guitar or drop my slide and have a chatter. It's always me.
I'm not going to touch that.
So I feel like I'm a little used to it. A little if something goes wrong, I'm like, okay, I look around and see who can help me out, or what what extras did I bring to make sure that I can get taken care of. So I try and stay quick on my feet.
Yeah, I guess once if you're prepared for it, then it doesn't faze you, I guess, right?
Yeah, because the worst thing you can do is just stand there and not do anything. So
I guess I never know.
Start dancing.
It's almost just
know.
like sometimes a moment like that goes really well, and sometimes just things move so fast on stage. That's the crazy thing.
It's crazy.
When that happens, it's like that weird, crazy, almost effect in films where it's like in fast slow motion, where it's just like things moving too quickly for you to really perceive time correctly.
Yeah.
But I was so happy when you brought that memory up, because it's one of those things that you just kind of forget.
Totally forgot.
And when you said it, it all came kind of rushing back, and I remember that moment. Yeah, I think you had maybe broken a string or something,
Probably.
but I remember it happening now, and
Yeah.
and it was just such a cool thing, because that was one of those where it just felt like it's always a bit like comparing it to landing a trick or something, because you feel like you're kind of in midair before you kind of hit the ground, and it's like, is he gonna stick the landing? I don't know, and I feel like she stuck the landing on that one. It was, and when you do it and everybody cheers and it's such a moment, it's like something. It's funny. It's like when something goes wrong in a show, that's makes the best moments, right?
Totally.
It's like if things go off without a hitch, like you planned it, it's all great. It's all 2 thumbs up is great. But if something goes wrong, that's when you really create, you get the chance anyway to create something truly special.
Yeah.
You really won fans that night, I think. I mean, I think country music in the UK, I mean, that was 2015, and it was really sort of just beginning to happen. Like you felt that kind of grassroots, you felt the energy. I think that, those concerts, it was incredible. And it was just wonderful to see you guys there. But speaking of incredible performances, last night you performed at the Ryman.
Yeah, the Ryman at the Grand Ole Opry, which is just such an honor.
Yeah,
And
it's another one of those things that goes by so quickly, and you're just like, by the time you get on stage, you're walking off stage, and it's like, did that happen? Is all that?
Right.
But it's a magical place, and it's really cool. They bring the Opry there during this time of year, I guess, so they can have some of the Christmas shows out at the Opry House, but. Just having the Opry at the Ryman in that historic room is just so cool.
Well, I think, for the uninitiated or people who have heard of it, but maybe haven't been or don't know, there's the Ryman Auditorium, which is a really famous theater in Nashville where they had the Grand Ole Opry for a long time. And then they actually built the Opry House, the Grand Ole Opry House out at Opryland. And so they have that. They have the actual show, the Grand Ole Opry, at the Opry House for most of the year. But then around Christmas, they moved the show back to the Ryman. And the Ryman's a lot smaller. It's more intimate. It's only about 2,000 or so people, which is still quite a lot. But
compared to the Opry House,
which
feels
is closer to 5,000.
Yeah.
But it's where so many of the greats of kind of a generation prior to the Opry House all played. And it's just the spirits there and the history. It's just all pretty overwhelming.
I feel like if country music were a religion, it would be born at the Ryman.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably
that's why
so.
they call it the Mother Church.
That's right.
Exactly why they call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so cool. That venue has every kind of music now. You can go. I remember seeing Grace Potter play a couple of years ago there, and it was one of the most amazing shows I had ever seen. And so I love how it is sort of this church of country music, but also now they've involved kind of everything, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And there's just kind of a general reverence for it, playing different style music, but we all we pull from it, and we're influenced by it, just like the blues. I mean, country music is just sort of ingrained in both of us. It's what our family, my grandparents would go up when they were in their 20s and would go to the Grand Ole Opry and see it there. And I just think they think it's the coolest thing in the world that I get to stand up on that stage and play the show. And so do I. I think it's amazing.
Do they come down and watch?
They have before. Now they're my granddad's he's 92, and I'm not going to say how old my grandma is, because she's just she's in her prime, but for my granddad's sake, of course it's just a little harder for them to travel, but they listened in last night, and I gave them a shout out on stage.
Do they text you? Are they texters?
They're not texters. I kind of get it sort of secondhand. Like they'll
Gotcha.
tell an aunt what to tell me.
Yeah. My granddad tried to text me and he was all thumbs.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I think that would be I think maybe they've tried and then couldn't make it past I tried to introduce him to Snake on like the just didn't happen.
Oh, before we wrap up, I actually have one fun question for you, and then I'll let you go. But so what I like to ask my interviewees is, on your proverbial iPod, if you remember, if you probably did have an iPod back in the day, what would your top 3 tunes be, or top 3 most played tunes be on your imaginary iPod?
That's good.
That is good.
Maybe this will be easier, and it'll give us, since we're a duo. If I go first and then you go, and then I can have time to think of my second one.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay,
That one, go ahead.
first.
So how about you do 2 each, and then we don't have to do 6?
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. I would say Go Your Own Way.
That's a good one.
Good one.
Yeah.
Mine was also a Fleetwood Mac song.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well,
I just think that Landslide is such, like, I can't even remember, honest to God, I can't remember who was doing it. I don't know if we were like in an airport or some random place, but somebody was singing it, and I heard it lyrically differently than I had ever heard it before. And I was like, oh, I know what this song is about now. I always liked the song. And then I listened to the words just differently. I was like, this song is incredible. And I think everybody knows it's such a great song, but I never really digested the lyrics in that way until that moment. I wish I could remember who it was, but that's okay. But that would probably be mine, would be Landslide.
And this is just a brutally hard question, but I think I would have to go with In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning,
That's pretty good.
which is a Frank Sinatra song.
Oh.
And that one was actually suggested by T-Bone when we were making the record. He would sometimes not give very specific tips on what to do. He would just play a song, and you're just meant to almost derive meaning from it. And so he played me that, and I took what I took from it, but also just the song took on a meaning bigger than I feel like what it ever was. But it's just, one, it's an absolute classic of a song, just lyrically and performance. But I would listen to it pretty much every morning when we would fly everywhere, when we were in kind of the thick of a tour in doing fly dates. So we would have to get up and do 4 or 5 flights a week. And I would just listen to that song every single morning, and gave me a sense of home or something like that. I don't know. I guess that's the only way you can really pick a song like that, because you have to kind of appropriate deeper and more substantial meaning to it. Otherwise, you just list every song in the world, because you'd be like, oh, I love this one for this, and I love this one for that. This one's got the greatest guitar solo, and this, I just love this artist the most, so this one.
Right.
But yeah, In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning,
That's
Frank
pretty good.
Sinatra.
Yeah.
Go listen to it if you haven't heard it. Yeah.
Did it ever influence anything that you guys wrote?
I don't know, because he would even say that, like, he never really even wrote any of his songs. But they became so quintessentially his.
Yeah.
It may have, but it would be subconsciously. I just always feel like if you try to write a song like that, you'd start singing like him and something like that, and it would kind of come off as kind of quasi weird. But I do love a lot of the language in those songs. They're really cool. Just titling a song In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning. That's almost like it sounds like a Scottish song.
Yeah, it kind of does.
People tease me about saying "we" all the time.
Oh, I think I've gotten it. I've slipped
Justin,
up
we
and
say
said it
it
just
a
from our
lot,
time
yeah.
in the UK and touring up in Scotland. I just started. Our tour manager is Scottish. He's from Aberdeen.
Oh,
And,
that's an accent.
Yeah, it is. It's so lovely. I love it. And so I think just being around him the most out of anyone on the tours, I start to like slip up and say it. I love it though.
Yeah.
Oh, I love a good Scottish accent and
Me too.
some Scottish words. I hope he teaches you something.
Absolutely.
Did you ever try a deep fried Mars bar whilst you were there?
No.
Someone else told me about
That's
that.
right. I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to do that next
Yeah.
time.
No, he basically just taught me and got me into the whiskey.
Yeah. Well, that's the best thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
a deep fried Mars bar is not good for you. I would not recommend it.
I have to say, Sarah can't get out of that. she has to say her second song.
Sarah, I'm so sorry. Please tell me your second song.
I think just because this song is like, in my head all the time is Bonnie Raitt's Something to Talk About. I think Bonnie Raitt is like, she's one of my biggest heroes. I've never even gotten to see her live, but she's one of my biggest influences, obviously, for slide. And just, I think the chord changes in that song are so cool. And it's just always been a song that I think is awesome. And anytime it comes on, I'm like, I'm not going to skip that song because I'm going to listen to it. So that would be mine.
Yeah, anytime somebody makes a key change feel natural or like it belonged there all the time.
Yep.
Even though it's like, I love that song was such a hit and had pretty abrupt key changes all throughout.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard for cover bands to nail.
I've not heard anyone nail it.
Yeah,
I think I had to
funny.
cover it in a class. Remember I had it in that rock ensemble class?
Yeah.
Were you in that class yet? Or were you
don't
just
think so.
watching?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I was like, this is fine, but like, that's a tough one to recreate. But it's just such a good song.
It's funny. A lot of female musicians quote Bonnie Raitt and that particular song when I ask them that, like who influenced you or why or whatever, and a lot of them say Bonnie Raitt.
I know that is true. I just read an article it was she and Brandy Carlisle, and Bonnie Raitt was like, nobody ever tells me that I'm their hero. Nobody ever says that I'm an influence. I was like, are you crazy?
What?
Like so many people must. But I think for me, especially just with the slide and as a female slide player, I think it's, she's defined some of that sound. And I think that she's just so cool. And I hope I get to meet her someday.
I'm sure you will. I mean, I know that we haven't really sort of talked about being a female guitarist because it's like, this is more of a band chat. But I mean, Sarah, what was it like at, music school for you as a female guitarist? Were you kind of one of a handful?
In college, I was one of two. And there were about 100 kids in the class. But to me, like, I don't think I started playing guitar when I was 10. I have two brothers. I don't even think at that point it really occurred to me like, oh, I'm the only girl. This is weird. Like, it was what I did. It never mattered. My competition was never the other girls. My competition was just the players. And so I have, like, people ask me all the time, like, what's it like to be a female guitar player? And I'm like, I'm just a guitar player to me, So it's sometimes I take a step out and I try and look at it because I really want to be able to be an influence where I can. And the more females we have playing guitar, the better, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's just funny because I think there's a lot of female guitarists and like when they're touring with their bands or whatever, and people will say to them, oh, are you like helping the band or something? People don't assume.
Oh yeah, I do get that. That's true. I have gotten that more recently than ever. I think I've gotten it. Like Justin and I will be setting up and he'll ask if I'm just his girlfriend. And then he's like, no, I'm like, this is my stuff.
Yeah.
But
and I can attest to that just because I'll be standing there when it happens. And it's just like, I don't think they mean anything by it. It's just one of those things. And then usually you kind of watch as the night progresses and their jaw starts to kind of slowly just drop and they realize, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a shame that is still the stereotype.
I know. I look forward to the day where it's not.
Well, this is kind of the way we do it, I think, because I feel like from the moment I saw Sarah play, it was just like the coolest thing I've seen. Just seeing female musicians and namely female guitar players, it will never not be cool. It's so cool.
I would love to, I'd love to see the phrase, she's really good for a girl, just go away.
Yeah.
Or just, female guitar player, it's just guitar player.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it still happens with female singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I know, right?
Things
I think
one day at a time.
among musicians, though, there's a real sense of sort of community, though, where just
totally.
It does seem to be around here. It's like people still think it's cool, and there is a rarity to it, but it's also a bit like musicians are just musicians.
Yeah,
like
that's
they
true.
just want to get together and jam and play. And once you all start playing, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's pretty level as far as just, all right, take one, Sarah.
Yeah.
And she plays a solo. It was like, that was great. Which is, I don't know, that's sort of been the beautiful thing among musicians and the musician community. It seems like when you read and hear about Muscle Shoals and stuff like that, where there kind of was no issues in race between musicians, where it was just, it's like people were just players.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what you were respected for. I think it's cool.
That's one of my favorite music documentaries. I'm glad you brought that up.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm a huge music documentary nerd, actually.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the good ones. Anyway, so you guys are playing 4 dates in the Northeast starting December 6th at the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn, New York. So I'm very excited for that show. And that's also the date that the new EP comes out. So best of luck with that. I'm really excited to hear the full EP.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed hearing more about you and your journey. And I'm so excited to see you at the Knitting Factory tomorrow. Yeah, or this week.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Indeed.
I'm really excited about it.
So are we.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Awesome. We'll chat soon. Sarah Zimmerman and Justin Davis of Striking Matches. You can catch them at the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn Friday, December 6th. The ticket link is in the details of today's episode. Now, if you want to get hold of an exclusive recording of Trouble Is As Trouble Does, all you need to do is click the link in the details of this episode. It's as easy as that. And if you enjoyed today's episode, give us a rating and tell your friends. And you can also find us on social media. We are at New York Artists Collective. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back in 2 weeks for another installment of This Next One's About. I'm Stephanie Manns. See you next time. New York Artists Collective.